And as Diana continues, we have got the survey and mapping. And I please hand over to you now to do this particular panel session.
Thank you very much, George. So this session, as you all know, is on survey and mapping. And we're going to look at what progress has been made in terms of accelerating land digitization in Africa. So from rural to urban planning, we are going to, and many other things involved, we're going to hear from our speakers. And I'd like to invite them. Our first speaker, and I assume they're all here in the room, Ibrahim Khalid Mambo, head Zanzibar Land Data Processing Center. Please come to the stage. Let's give him a warm welcome. We also have Alexis Rutagengwa, who is the head of Surveying, Mapping, and Land Use Planning Department, Rwanda Land Management, and Rwanda Land Management Use Authority at the Ministry of Environment. Please, Alexis, welcome to the stage. We also have Andrew Sukhee, who is the Vice President of Hojung Solution. Yes, let's give him a warm welcome. And finally, we have Walter Volkmann, who is president of Micro Aerial Project, based in Zanzibar. His main focus is on remote sensing and web map application development. Ibrahim currently works at the Commission for Lands in Zanzibar, which is under the Ministry of Land, Housing, Water, and Energy at Zanzibar Land Data Processing Center, where he oversees spatial data management and maintenance. Thank you for joining the panel, Ibrahim.
Thank you.
Thank you. We also have Alexis Rutagengwa, who is the head of surveying, as I said earlier on, mapping and land use planning department of Rwanda Land Management and Use Authority. He has profound experience in land management, surveys, and mapping. His work includes, amongst other things, coordination and supervision of the national mapping, geodetic, topographic, hydrographic, and cadastral surveys, as well as coordination of the national land use planning and management. Thank you for joining the panel, Alexis.
Thank you.
We also have with us Andrew Sukhee, who's the Vice President of Hojung Solution, and he is responsible for the company's global relationship and development and overseas promotion of project initiatives and management. He successfully launched the first sales of Korean manufactured UAV in the United States and built strategic partnerships with companies in the Americas. Andrew, thank you for joining the panel.
Thank you.
And with us we have Walter Volkmann, who was born in Namibia and was the first land surveyor in Southern Africa to purchase GPS survey equipment. In 2008, he founded Micro Aerial Projects, and together with his son, is providing geospatial solutions using drone and GNSS technology. Walter is currently leading an Omidmar network-funded initiative to build drone mapping capacities in Ghana and Colombia. Thank you very much for joining the panel, Walter. And with that said, I would like to invite our panelists to give very brief PowerPoint presentations regarding the topic for this panel. And I'll start with you, Ibrahim, to give your first presentation. Yes, thank you. Yes. You can stand on the lectern.
Hi, and good morning, everyone. I'm Ibrahim, as introduced. I'm from Zanzibar, and I'll be here to talk about the ZMI project, the Zanzibar Mapping Initiative, which is a highly known project in Africa, where it involved a single mapping of largest area, survey area in Zanzibar, which covers the 2 islands of Zanzibar. Going ahead, instead of giving introduction about the commissions for land, which I think it's included in the introduction provided by Diana, I'll go directly to give a brief introduction of the project. And this will be through a video that is highly available in the social media, in the YouTube and in other social media platforms. So this video will introduce us to the project, and then I'll go ahead and discuss some of the use cases of the data that was obtained from this UAV technology.
Zanzibar ni kubwa kabisa. Sisi tunatengeneza hii project kwa ajili ya hiyo ramani. Hiyo ramani kila mtu.
So we have scarcity of land, we have high natural growth, we have very high, immigration. So you can see problem of land and problem of urban growth. So it's really very, very important for us to know the status of land use in Zanzibar and land development, destruction. So we have to know it so that we can manage it better.
Robot ambayo huyu sisi tunamtumia kwa ajili ya kupiga picha.
So whenever it goes to the destination, it take a picture, it take another picture. We are connecting those images. Finally, after that, we are getting the pictures as if it was taken at once, like
We have a lot of possibility of using these factors. In terms of, I'm talking in terms of economy, because we can plan better. In terms of security, to tell people where there's a flood. In terms of service also.
Initially, when we fly with the aerial mapping in 2004, we get the aerial mapping with the resolution of 25 centimeter. But now with drone, over all the land, we will fly with the resolution of 7 centimeter. So this will be very good resolution, is amazing. Everything you can see. We will detect the changes from the past 12 years, how the development of the city, how much the climate change affect our islands.
Kama country yangu sasa hivi itakuwa na kitu ambacho cha uhakika. Itakuwa tuna kitu kama cha kwetu ambacho tumekifanya, na mimi ni mzaliwa wa hapa, alafu nimeshiriki katika kitu cha nyumbani. I'm proud of that.
So for us, having this opportunity to go very quickly, knowing what we have, and then we can plan it for the future, is really golden opportunity. So when we see this, we jump, because we know this is the tool we wanted to use for future development of Zanzibar.
Okay, so from the video, I'll jump directly into the use cases of these products that were obtained from these UAV flights. And one of them is by Commission for Lands. The Commission for Land is a principal body that governs all land matters in Zanzibar. And we at Commission for Land, we're using this one for adjudication. That is to ensure that the security of or tenure security is provided in Zanzibar. And this exercise started in 2011. And until now, around 10% of those areas that are to be adjudicated have been covered. That increased from 2016 to 13% more, and this was a result of these UAV imageries, as you can see from the provided picture on the slides. So areas of sandstone seem to be mapped, and successfully titles have been issued to the owner of those particular lands. And then Department of Urban and Rural Planning is using these imageries for development of one national spatial development strategy. This is in progress. And then there is also development of township into service centers, so that to diversify the economy of these coastal settlements. And there are areas that are mentioned there in the slides. These are upgraded into service centers, so that more services can be available in this coastal settlement. And also they are used in zoning or in planning guidance by the people who are working at the urban and rural planning department. We're also using these imageries for digitization of the building's roof print. So we did the digitization of the building footprint for the entire island, 2 islands, which is Zanzibar and Pemba, and about 500,000 buildings have been digitized so far. And the work was done by the COLA, that is Commission for Land, and SUZA, Zanzibar State University of Zanzibar student, as part of capacity building. And in that, the result that were obtained from this digitization project or work was used in another projects, or most of the projects that are currently ongoing in Zanzibar. As you can see from the provided slides, that all the 2 islands have been covered by the buildings and can be seen depicted by the buildings. Those are not coastlines, those are buildings that are covering the 2 islands of Zanzibar. So in order to, and then we use these data sets provided by this digitization exercise to update the OSM data set, that is OpenStreetMap data set, so you can see the comparison between now and 2016. So you can see that the entire city now has been covered by buildings, and this was done through mass building imports, coupled with field map surveys that were done also by the students from SUZA, State University of Zanzibar. This same data set is used in property taxation. The government aims in providing or assisting local government to collect revenue through property taxation. So we have used same data set as source, whereby the field enumerators go to the field and collect data regarding the property valuation of these buildings using the data set that were digitized from this drone imagery. So you can see the forms and the sample maps that are used by these enumerators when they go to the field. Oh, good. And in conclusion, we're seeing that there are a couple more uses of these data sets. In Zanzibar, we currently starting something called Zanzibar Special Data Infrastructure. And the basis of this Zanzibar Special Data Infrastructure, or in short it's called ZANSDI, is based on this data set that were collected from this drone imagery. We had the previous imagery from 2014. This little old and cannot be used for any planning or any future development as far as GIS is concerned. Also, the government is intending to diversify the land economy, that is to introduce capital gains and to introduce other property taxes, as mentioned. So we are seeing that the use case of this drone could be much improved, could be used successfully. Also, there are interests by other government institutions, such as Statistics Department. We have water and electrical companies. These are owned by the government, but we have seen interest from them that they want to use the same data sets to map the nodes, like water nodes and electricity nodes, to the household levels. Also, there are uses of these drone imageries by forestry and marine conservation departments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Alexis, I would like to call on you to give your presentation.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Alex, as introduced this earlier. I'm going to talk briefly on the use of the use case of drones in Rwanda, especially in the mapping and surveying sectors. So as you can see, since the beginning, the starting of 2 companies, Caris and Zipline, the mapping using drone has started creating impact in Rwanda. You can see that there are a lot of, I wanted to present about 6 projects so far, which are key and creating impact to rural and urban communities in Rwanda. The first project is how the drone was used to monitor the Mukura Gishwati zone. It is a degraded zone, and invaded by the population. But the question was to restore that zone, reforesting, planting many trees in that zone. So the drone was one of the alternatives to know how much trees have been planted by the community. You can know that also Kigali Rwanda in general is a hilly area with of course valleys and mountains. So it requires only the drone is one of the best technology to map that type of landscape. Looking at the second project that Rwanda has conducted, to know what, where, and who is in wetlands. Wetlands as a state land was being invaded by the population, and those wetlands are flood-prone areas. So the government was actually having a question: how can we relocate those people? So the drone was used then to know which activities are located in Kigali wetlands, and how many, and what value of those wetlands. So the drone have played a very big role to monitor the land use and create an informed decision for the government to relocate the people in that flooded zone. So you can see also that as area presented by the panel, the drones are being used in mapping and in agriculture in general. We used the drone to monitor the consolidated crops in northern province, in Musanze, to look at also the health conditions of the crops. So we piloted in that zone, and we found out good results that the drone can help to have condition of the crop as well. When you look at also on the other side of irrigation, we have such big schemes of irrigation. So the drone was used also to map the topography and to know details for further irrigation development. Rwanda, another project which is fifth, I think, is the use of drone in cadastral system. Cadastral system has been developed since 2013 in Rwanda. We're covering the whole country. So we have a very good database, but which needs to be up to date in a regular way. So we piloted, or we tested how the drone can be used in that regards. So we have now good results that for urban areas, especially, the drone is very effective to know and to update the boundaries of parcels. Another project is flood mapping. This is very effective in northern province and western, where even it's very difficult to use ground survey using surveyors as a normal practice. So to flying a drone, it's a very easy and timely, and can be used in very short time. So flood mapping in northern province has then informed how that ecosystem can be restored and protected against soil erosion, and against other malpractices. So going quickly, I wanted also to share with you about neighboring environment in Rwanda. So far we have regulations. It has been discussed very well by different panels. Regulations are clear, and we have also a very important system of land administration, cadastral system, which actually and it can be integrated with the drone data. As well, most importantly, we have the course network continuously operating reference stations across the country, whereby today we can cover 100% the country. So this is a very important asset for the country, so that this, for every drone user, can be connected and have a high accuracy and precision in terms of data capture. We have also organized our surveyors in terms of association, so that we make sure that the capacity building and the efficiency also is done around this technology. Now, as challenges, when you look at the types of drone we have so far, we have a problem of limited flying time. Okay, thank you. Let's go quickly because maybe this will discuss much more. We have constraint of flying time. You can fly a drone, but very difficult to stay longer, which that's a very big constraint that maybe is also an opportunity for investment, limited service coverage, and so forth. So there is a lot of opportunities that we can discuss in the country, and all of you can look at that the perspective to continuously create a conducive environment in terms of the systems and integrating the drone in different sectors as well as creating partnership with other spatial actors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexis. I would like to ask our two remaining panelists to kind of speed up the presentations so we can have a bit more meat in our conversations. Thank you.
My name is Andrew Cho from Hojung Solutions, and we're one of the finalists in the Find and Assess category of the Lake Kivu Challenge. And we feel very fortunate to have this part of the presentation specifically of mapping and survey, because we're not a heavy lifter or cargo drone. We are a very small, efficient drone that is focused primarily in the precision mapping, cadastral, and land surveying. My presentation will focus on the following topics. International land projects we have conducted, and I'll talk briefly about the funding side of it. Drone-based geomatics and the advantages of using drones. The scope of an exercise, a feasibility study that we did in Ethiopia. And the following slides will focus on some of the effectiveness that we have found. Wanted to share that in the analysis of the effectiveness and some concluding remarks. So our international projects, as you know, Korea has been one of the fast economic development. Its success has been quite impressive. And as our economic development improved, and later on we became from one of the recipient countries to a donor country, and spearheading a lot of these projects in the capacity building in all over the world has been EDCF of Korea, KOICA, and the Ministry of Land and Infrastructure and Transportation. And with their sponsorship and funding, we have been able to specifically focus on some of the drone projects in some of the countries in Africa: Tanzania, Ethiopia, Tunisia, and in Sri Lanka. Something wrong? Okay. Yeah. Go. Sorry.
Yeah. So this is forward. This is back.
Thank you. So drone-based geomatics has its advantage. Of course, we believe that a lot of the technology has a very proven track record. We consider that in the field of mapping and survey, it's no longer in the testing stage. It's beyond that. It has given very reliable and effectiveness in using drone in the survey and mapping. But having said that, you want to choose what type of tools you want to use. Drone could be very effective, but if you're covering a vast amount and large territories, you'd of course rather use a satellite or manned air imaging. But the important part of actually using a drone for imaging is because instead, if you choose to use alternatives, you'd require a massive infrastructure. Drones have a very quick and immediate response time, and we found that it has a very empowering factor to the local community. It is a localized asset, as we consider. It does not require a lot of approvals and going through logistics to really mobilize a large imaging from satellite or manned aircraft. So drone is effective in really giving some autonomy to the local government in trying to really respond quickly. And that, I think, is one of the strengths of using drone over other alternatives. The project we conducted in Ethiopia, in the city of Adama, was possible through the funding, and it's a feasibility study through the funding of EDCF program. And the area that we took, the project had a component, the larger component of mapping and taking imagery of a large 6 square kilometer. And we divided the zone into Zone A and 2. And Zone A was more of a developed area where boundaries were very clearly marked, lots, and the lines were clearly defined. The second area was more of an informal area where lines and boundaries were not really clear. So in Zone 1, the results and the imagery that we took, it was from the image of the drone. We were able to capture about 400 points to be able to, and the rest of the points, because of the coverage in trees and canopies, we had to do it by ground, but that was a more minimal. On the traditional survey method, we'd use total stations to extract those points. As you can see, the drone image were taken, took about 3 hours, and the ground surveying was a little bit longer for 4 hours. And the total number of parcels we measured, combined ground and drone, was 243 from 450 points, and it took about 7 hours with a manpower of 3 people. The second zone was less developed. It was less marked, so it took an extra step to really prepare the markings to clearly define the boundaries. The data that we extracted from there was 425 points, on the ground 15 points, and actually in this case it was easier to really extract the points because in these less developed neighborhoods there were less trees and less obstacles that really covered some of the images. So in total, 216 parcels, 453 points, and basically 5 manpower for 6 hours. Comparing the cadastral demarcation extracted from our survey with drones and some of the points from ground survey measured against the work and the existing data from the Ethiopian cadastral, we were able to measure some difference of, in some areas, very small millimeters, and in some areas where perhaps the largest was 20 centimeters. And the important part, I suppose, here is that most of the points fit the standards that Ethiopia was requiring in terms of their cadastral measurements. So as you can see, the effectiveness. Okay. So I want to really emphasize this point. The takeaway from our analysis was that in many cases, the measurements may have been off, but it fit the standards. But the most important part is that it really gave the opportunity for participatory. A lot of the surveyors and the demarcation that many of the surveyors were really ready to really participate in the actual feasibility study. It is important that from this process, we are actually taking a lot of the labor-intensive aspects of people measuring and marking the lines from outside labor to inside of the post-processing aspect of it. So in a way, you are actually changing the job description in a way, almost upgrading the work that is done from many surveys working in the field to really upgrading their roles of the demarcators to the office. And we find that this is a very easy process because a lot of the surveyors that we worked in both Tanzania and Ethiopia were really professional surveyors, traditional surveyors, yet they had a very solid foundation in surveying. So it was a very easy transformation for them to really absorb the skills set from the data set that we were acquiring from the drones. So in conclusion, it is a tool that we can use very effectively, and we believe that there's an aspect of very autonomous and very independent way of really empowering a lot of the surveyors locally to be able to conduct survey using drones. It is simply putting new set of tools in the hands of surveyors who have already a very solid knowledge of geodetics and land surveying. So I would like to conclude with that, and I'll take questions next.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Walter?
Thank you. My background is from the small enterprise, family-owned perspective. I hope to bring some grassroots perspective to the drone issue. I'm a professional land surveyor, mainly concerned with finding better solutions, more efficient solutions to address the serious backlog in formalization of property rights all over the world. Over 50% of the world's population is working and living on land of which the ownership details are not clear or formalized. There's a huge backlog. We need more efficiency in surveying, in performing cadastral survey. That's our task. In order to provide true self-sufficiency that can take root on an organic and a decentralized basis, we need to make sure that we have skills from the first mile to the last mile. And the first mile in drone technology, to my mind, is to know how a drone works and to be able to recover from crashes. So it's a rather provocative little diagram there, but if you cannot quickly recover from a crash, you cannot really deliver a sustainable service. We are working mainly in Ghana, so I'm going to just show you a couple of pictures of what we are doing there. From scratch, from scratch or from easily available parts, we teach selected counterparts in Ghana how to build drones and then on how to fly them, so that they are able to have a deep understanding of drone technology and that they feel secure and confident in using this technology. Because we believe that only with a sense of confidence can you really unleash innovation at the local level. If you are forever scared of crashing or of not being able to recover, you will be hampered in your initiatives regarding innovation that is appropriate for local conditions. So we immerse our trainees in real-life situations while holding their hand, so it's very much a hands-on training at the beginning. And then we introduce the technology also to the powers that are. It's no use ignoring authorities. It's very important to collaborate with them. So here we are talking to the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources in Ghana, who, as a result, partly of our initiatives, has got a very positive approach, an embracing approach to drone technology. We also supply equipment on the basis of 1 is none and 2 is 1, so there's always a spare drone in a set, so that people can recover in the field from any mishaps that could occur. We also motivate the embracement of drones, the acceptance of drones by providing robust cost-benefit analyses, not only in terms of accuracy and economic efficiency, but also in spreading the spectrum of participation. The high resolution of drone imagery lends itself perfectly to make planning and urban planning and land use allocations, land administration, and all of these things, to make them accessible to all folks, especially the stakeholders on the ground. The high resolution is key to drone technology. The outcome, the desired outcome, is of course implementation of the technology. The Ghana Lands and the Lands Ministry is considering now buying 30 drones. Hopefully they will decide to buy it from a local manufacturer. So with that, I think I'm going to cut myself short here.
Thank you.
I had a little video that I wanted to show, but I'll forego that in the interest of making more time available for questions and answers.
My name is Alexander.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So in the interest of time, and I think George or one of the facilitators here will let me know how many minutes we have. I can see we have 10 more minutes, and I also wanted to hear from the audience. So we're going to just have, I'm just going to ask one or two generic questions to the panel, and then if there are any questions, very quickly we'll take them in the next 10 minutes we have before we close for the coffee break. So you've explained your work in terms of survey and mapping and using drone technology in land use, land management, and accelerating rights in terms of land rights and so on and so forth. My question to you is from a policy level or from implementers, you know, in drone technology, what business model fits? And this is to all of you. Should governments invest in internal capacity in really building this drone technology, or should they, you know, focus more on partnerships with expert service providers, especially with regards to survey and mapping? What's your take on this? And Ibrahim, I'll start with you.
Okay, for the case of Zanzibar, for example, all of the works that were done using this UAV technology relied on the local expertise through capacity building programs. So we had experts from abroad, of course, but their job was to train especially the students, as I mentioned in the presentation, all the works from the drone flights, data processing, data storing and management was done by these students. Also, when it comes to digitization, all of those 500,000 buildings were digitized by students from this university, State University of Susa. And coupled with the drone, polygons that were digitized, roof prints of the buildings, there was a survey work that was done also by these students during the summer of this summer, of course, who went to the field and collected data for those parcels. These were household data, so they included resilience data, for example, whether a house is flooded or not. They also included data for whether the house is equipped with running water or not. Also, they collected data for the amenities such as roads, mosques, churches, you know, dispensaries. So basically, most of the work was done by these students, and this is an effort for the government, because whenever these projects are coming to Zanzibar, the government emphasizes on building on local capacity so that the local citizens, students, youth, and also the government workers should be trained in order to facilitate whenever the project ends. So nowadays you have these foreign companies, or you have other institutions who are coming for commission for lands because they are the custodian of these data sets, asking for these data sets. Also you have experts from abroad who are working on different projects, health projects, and you have experts working on construction. When they come, usually they come to us, the local experts, for the data set, or sometimes they need to refly on a certain zone. So we are the one who are doing it, we are the one who are processing the data, and we are the one who are managing and storing these data sets. So I don't know about other countries, but I think the model that we in Zanzibar are doing is better because it's cost effective.
Yes.
Because when you have this, I'm not saying that they shouldn't invest in these foreign experts, because also in Zanzibar we want to accelerate some of these services. For example, in land tenure exercise. So we want to hire some of the Korean consultants. I don't know the company, I forgot the company's name. But they will like together with what we have. So we work together to ensure that this process of land registration is fast and
accelerated.
Yeah.
Walter, I would like to pose the same question to you.
Yeah, I think the solution ultimately to cope with the big backlog in especially the formalization of land rights lies in decentralization. So the more small operators we can get to collect imagery at short notice, audit just in time, and at high frequency as needed, the better. Drone technology offers us the opportunity to make us independent of the scale of economy. So we are moving to a scenario where no job is too small. We are dealing with individuals and maybe small group land rights, and their needs will best be addressed locally. That's what we believe. So the more we can replicate small enterprise drone capacities, the better. So I was so pleased to see downstairs at the exhibition hall there, as a young man from Dar es Salaam, I believe, who's used a piece of styrofoam and 2 sticks of bamboo and mounted on it open source drone technology. And he can hang a camera on it and make maps. That's the kind of solution that I would like to see promoted more aggressively than what has been happening to date. There's a huge potential to be untapped here in Africa. In many African countries, lots of talent and lots of good education is wasted because they don't find application in things like drone technology. This young man who built that drone there is not a rocket scientist. He's a development specialist with no scientific or no university education in mathematics or anything of that kind. He's using open source technology. There's a group called ardupilot.com. It's got over 70,000 users worldwide, and he's tapping into that resource to make a drone right here in Africa. And that's what we need. We have the African Drone Forum should have African drone assemblers as part of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to pose the same question to you, Andrew, and then Alexis.
Yes.
Best business model.
In terms of the ability to really create and do accurate land surveying with drones, we believe that there's 2-level expertise that is needed. The first to be a solid foundation in land surveying principles, and the second would be how the operation of the drone, and then the third one would be more the post-processing of the data. From our experience in Africa, and I'm not sure if I could speak for all the countries, but for sure most of the countries in Africa has a very solid foundation in terms of geodetic and land surveying specialists. It's an old traditional job where there are surveyors that can do and have solid knowledge of that. So our long-term approach would be to invest in the infrastructure of drones and try to create the skills needed for that aspect, because there's already a very solid foundation in terms of surveyors. And our experience has really been very good where, for example, the demarcators and all the surveyors were able to pick up the knowledge on the data that was collected from drones. They use a lot of the ArcGIS and a lot of the software already, so they've been able to absorb that. So my answer would be to really, our approach would be to invest so that there's a transfer of knowledge and transfer of technology that can be absorbed in a fairly short period of time.
Thank you very much. Alexis?
Thank you very much. What I can say is that the drone technology is more like a passion. So most of people, when you look at the people who practice it, they enjoy it, as said. So the role of the government now is to create that conducive environment for the youth, for the private sector, so that everyone can feel free to practice the mapping using drone. When you look at Rwanda case, yes, we have good regulations that enable everyone to invest and to go in this field. And also the government has created education, all learning institutions are available, are teaching relevant courses around mapping and so forth. So up to now, it's a good practice. Maybe we need the government to this area to be part of the African free trade area, where everyone can feel free to cross border and practice this activity everywhere in neighboring countries. So that environment, I think, is the one to create. And when you look at the technology in general and the surveying, they have similarities. So
I think that's the point. Thank you.
I would like to ask if there are any, very briefly, questions from the audience. Yes, we have a gentleman right there, and then one here, and I think we'll close. If you can just be very quick with your questions.
Yes, my name is Alpha Mangula from Tanzania, Arusha. So I just have one quick question on issues of survey, because in the case of Tanzania, we are running these big projects on regularization, where we survey the informal settlements, trying to resurvey them. But the practice is you must, everyone who is owning a piece of land must be there and show it so as they can show you the boundaries. And if you don't do that, at the end of the day, there's a lot of land conflicts. Now, I was wondering when the presenters presenting on what they're doing, like using the drone around to have the points. I think I was just when I think on what I see in the practice when we are doing this liberalization, if someone is not there to verify the boundary, and those are informal settlements, and when I say informal settlements, I think we agree, the housing density is very huge. You cannot say the boundary of each of a certain house easily. So I was wondering, is there another thinking of machine learning, and how can it be interpreted with the traditional methodology? Because what I'm trying to say is, how are they thinking to use the technology and the tradition? Because if the tradition wants you to be there, how the technology can accommodate that? That's the
Thank you. Do you want to answer that question very quickly? Yes, Walter?
Yes, I think the key to that aspect is just to bring the geospatial information to the village, and not just grab the information from the village and take it to town. Actually, for example, adjudication takes best place under the tree, in the village, in the presence of the community. Somebody makes a land claim, he has to do that in the presence and witnessed by his neighbors and his fellow villagers. So we found out that a lot of discussion around and enthusiasm around land use and land administration at the local level is facilitated by the high resolution of drone imagery. And it is not always a question of spatial accuracy, but of accurate interpretation of the spatial context in which information is presented. So having this high resolution opens the spectrum and transparency at the local level, and that's extremely important for security of tenure.
Thank you. We had a question, I think, here. Please be very quick to the point with what you're asking.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Vincent. I'm from South Africa. We have an aerial survey company, and we use both manned and drones to do our survey. The question is always been is that where's the break point between using aerial and unmanned? I mean, proper manned aerial platforms and unmanned aerial platforms, because what is the best practice in terms of square meterage? And just one other comment that I would like to say is that what we've done is that we've converted our surveyors into drone pilots, because we believe that they can bring a level of accuracy into the work that they finally produce, instead of trying to get drone pilots to become surveyors.
Very interesting. Would you like to comment on that? And then from the panel? Yes,
maybe I can touch on that. For example, as I mentioned, in case of Zanzibar, we have these surveyors and who are always obsessed with millimeter accuracy. So when you fly a drone, they don't believe that a drone can bring you millimeter accuracy, especially in case of Zanzibar, because we do not have this core system. But in countries with core system, we've seen that in the case of Korea, I think also here in Rwanda. I talked with Alexis yesterday, and he mentioned that in Rwanda they have this core system. So with core system, you have these drones flying. You do not need to worry about achieving this millimeter level accuracy. So it depends basically on the country. And when you asked about the limit between having this, the planes and having these drones, the advantage of having drone is you can refly on the same area. For example, you have a project and you have flown for example, 2 months ago, and then the conditions have changed, or maybe there's a construction site that is, construction activities are going on. You can refly again using drones, but that cannot be the case when you say you fly a plane to capture the same area. And usually flying drones using planes, you are doing that when you are covering a large area, not very small area. For example, for our case, we usually don't need to fly using the planes because the area is small and most of this area is covered. And then we refly like frequently in most of these areas to solve these problems of land conflicts and border conflicts as far as the land tenure is concerned.
Thank you, Walter. Very quickly.
Yes, I do agree that surveyors are good targets for drone technology, but I think we should have many, many more drones flying around than there are surveyors around in order to make up for the backlog. To limit our attention just to the current and people who are practicing land surveying will not address the problem adequately.
Do you want to say something? But very quickly, Alexis, we are done with time.
Yes. Actually, the drone is not only a tool or equipment. It's also the processing. It's also the technology incorporated in it. So our surveyors, we are now combining different equipment. Sometimes we use total stations. Then we use scanners. Then drones. Then we are going even to robotics. So it's actually we cannot avoid the technology to grow. So our surveyors are not only standing on one point, but they are growing also in terms of what they use and at what scale. Imagine the project that engaged many surveyors with a lot of time. For 1 year, the drone can make it in some days. So this is also a time management part and efficiency also in whatever we are doing. So the drone technology comes to increase the efficiency and accuracy in whatever we are doing in terms of surveying and mapping. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I'm not able to take any more questions because we're actually 10 minutes over this panel's end, but I'd like us to just give a warm round of applause for the contributions to the panelists. And thank you very much. And I think I'll hand over to George to announce what happens next. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for what a wonderful panel, and thank you, Diana, for moderating 2 panels. If I can ask Rosa to come up, please, and we do the usual. But as she's doing that, I think this discussion today made us realize or question what is the operational model, what's the business model for a drone operator so that he can be sustainable? And this is the question that people are asking, and this is what I got out of the 2 panel discussions. And this is why we have the ADF, to try and come up with those answers. And at the same time, it's the use cases that will tell us. So as the Honorable Minister Paula told us yesterday about the use cases in Rwanda, the 3 of them that we're going to have with the support of DFID, we want to come up with data that we can now circulate to the parties at large to say, this is a model. Do you spend 5 cents per minute per flight, and how many flights do you do? How is it good vis-a-vis putting your stuff in a lorry? How much time do you save? And that's why we have the use cases, which will help us give us those answers to make it really understandable on how to best use drones with greater efficiency.